Welcome to WonderTour. This episode, we are in our game theory series, and we are looking at the TV show Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So we're going to start off with a tough question about leadership here. Now, in the episode, Season 5, Episode 14, The Box, we have a peculiar episode where we have Jake Peralta and Holt doing this interrogation of this dentist who is suspected to be a murderer. Now, it's kind of a small episode with only 3 people in it. In fact, that's the reason that they did the episode this way, is because they only had Andy Samberg and Andre Blaller available for the episode. So they went with something a little bit out of the box here. But it's pretty cool because we're able to apply game theory. And honestly, it's kind of a weird episode in that it's not like a traditional interrogation might go. This is probably not how most interrogations go, in fact. I'm not a
I hope not. I
professional.
really hope not.
But it's actually a little bit more like a lot of business scenarios might go, which is going to make it a perfect application for WonderTour. So, Brian, in this episode, there are multiple attempts to try to get a confession out of the suspect in this situation, the dentist. The problem is we see both Holt and Peralta just absolutely failing multiple times. They try something and it just works so horribly that they're embarrassed. They come back out and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, what are we going to do next? Brian, why is failure, though, a prerequisite for us to ever see success?
This is a great question. We all hate failure, right? We cannot stand looking stupid. We cannot stand having an idea that doesn't work out. We cannot stand trying the same stupid thing over and over again and not having it work. And we especially cannot stand that one annoying person that won't give you what you want, even though you're obviously right. And so, yeah, you can view the suspect here as a stand-in for somebody that you're asking for any sort of resources or trying to negotiate with that's being stubborn. But yeah, they're trying to corner him into saying that he did it. The setup is, which I love, the setup is they have enough facts to have a pretty good idea that this person is the actual murderer, right? But they don't have enough facts to prove it. And so they kind of need him to give them some information. And he strongly is not motivated to give them any information because he may have committed the perfect crime and doesn't want to go to jail. So, it's a good setup. I love the fact that they start this process with facts, but with no insight. They understand the setup, but they don't understand the person that they're talking to at all. And their repeated failures are because they don't understand, they have no idea what would cause this person to actually give them any information. And they just try a bunch of different things, and none of those things work. And some of them are terrible ideas. They're getting, there's some frustration, but there's also incredible persistence. And part of what's good about this, the reason that failure is the prerequisite for success, is because they need to get more information to get where they want to go. And these two, despite their shenanigans, are able to redefine failure as iteration, right? They're able to redefine, that didn't work, not as well, this is never going to work, but that didn't work. What else can we try? And they're remarkably persistent about that. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's do this other thing. And the things that they try are increasingly dumb. It's you'll be the dumb cop and I'll be the smart cop, and I'll say some things and then I'll leave them with you. And then, now we're going to, But when you're entering a negotiation with somebody else, when you're entering a conversation with somebody else where you don't know what they want, or when you know that what you want and what they want are opposed, right? There's very little chance for success. There's very little chance to convince somebody to do something that is against what they perceive as their interests. And that's where they start this conversation.
Well, the temptation, Brian, is to try to outsmart in a negotiation. It's to try to outsmart somebody into getting them to agree to your position or something like that. But the reality is that it's not really about that at all. And in fact, what we learn in this is an example of repeated games. So going back to our game theory model, in game theory, you can have a perspective or a model of a way to think about a scenario that is an individual game, and that eventually the game is going to have a winner and a loser, or it's going to have a loser and a loser, or whatever the situation is, depending on what the potential outcomes are. But there's also examples where you're going to play these games over and over and over again, and with each game, there's going to be posturing and different plays coming from each player, and as a result, there's going to be iterations where you can learn and adjust strategies and things like that. So this is really an example of a repeated game. And to be honest with you, what we want to find ourselves in life, and definitely in business, is a repeated game, because I am hardly smart enough to make the right decision the first time. But I hope that I am smart enough to learn from each time that I make a decision, and by the third time, make a pretty good decision.
Right. Absolutely. Right. If you're trying to sell a product or a service out in the market, right, you may not understand the first time, you've got an idea what the thing is, but you don't actually know how to convince somebody to buy it, right? The first couple times you try to sell it to a customer, they're going to say no. Like, oh, that's stupid. I don't understand that. What is that thing? That explanation doesn't resonate with me. That story doesn't resonate with me. That price is too high. That price is so low that I don't think it's going to work, right? The only way that you learn, like the only way you become a good salesperson is by failing a lot at sales, right? Is by trying a lot of different explanations and a lot of different pitches and maybe a lot of different price points or a lot of different deals until you understand how to explain the thing that you do in context of something that they want.
And this is the tie back to our last series that we did on Trust the Process. The process is the iteration. It's that you just keep going back at it. You reflect each time, you come up with a new approach. And the combination of trust the process and game theory is at play here, right? Where trust the process is a mindset that we bring to our lives, where we believe that we can get better through iteration and through hard work. And game theory is a way to adjust after each iteration, how we view each player, what we think each player might do in each situation. It's even an opportunity for us to influence the decision that the player is going to make in the next iteration of the game. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about when we come back after the intro.
Hi, I'm Brian Nutwell.
And I'm Drew Perot.
And we are on a journey to lead wisely, to become better leaders by touring fantastic worlds and inspiring lore by going on a WonderTour.
Connect leadership concepts to story context, because it sticks to our brains better. You can find out more at WonderTourPodcast.com or on YouTube by searching Lead Wisely.
Also on the website, fabulous merchandise featuring our incredible logo.
Suns over Tatooine.
All right, so we are iterating. We are in this repeated game in the context of this interrogation, which you might also think is like a pitch meeting. Right. Our protagonists, Jake and Holt, control the schedule, right? They control, like, you're here for this long. I can keep calling meetings. I can keep talking to you. They sort of control the rules of the engagement, but their opponent, the suspect, controls the information. Does not need to tell them anything at all. Just needs to make it through without revealing anything. And so really, the information that they need at the end of the day is a confession. They need him to say what he did or how he did it, or reveal, kind of what actually went down. But that's not actually the unlock. Like, just asking for that, they tried that. Just asking him, did you do it? And of course that doesn't work. Like, this is dumb. That's actually not the important information that they really need. What is the most important information that they need out of this repeated game in order to have a chance of success?
Yeah, so that leads us to our mountaintop moment here, Brian, and we will answer that question over the course of the scene. The scene in question here is when Peralta, who has been insisting through this entire episode that he has an approach, he's got a tactic that he really wants to try, and Holt has been holding him back. He's like, no, we're not going to lie to the suspect and tell him that we have the neighbor as a witness, and he's going to hold him accountable. So in this situation, though, Peralta tries it himself. He goes at it in one of the iterations. He goes back in, and he's like, so here's the thing. We already have your neighbor, and he said that he saw you there recently, even though you're telling us that you haven't been there for months at your uncle's house, and you're stuck. And the dentist is like, well, that's interesting, because that neighbor's been dead for 3 years.
Crash and burn.
Yeah, right. He tries to bluff, and he gets humiliated.
It gets worse, right? Now the dentist, they played the one card that they had, and now the suspect is like, you guys are completely full of crap.
And you can't bluff anymore now, because the lawyer's going to start to step into the room and be like, listen, you've already tried this. Whatever you're trying to convince us you don't have, we already were able to prove that you didn't have it. So you've played your one bluff. It's like in the business meeting, like you said, the example that we're giving of a pitch meeting. It's like, if you try to gloss over the data a little bit and make it look nicer than it does, but if that executive or that person from the other stakeholder group or customer or whatever is like, wait a second, no, I think that data is telling a different story, well, the whole thing's going to fall apart.
Yeah, if they poke at it once and they find a soft spot, they find a weakness, then the whole thing is like, well, I don't trust anything that you've said now. Like, I don't believe that you have anything together.
Exactly. And so how does this actually work out in Peralta's favor? Brian.
So Peralta comes back in the room and he's really discouraged. He's like, "Oh, that didn't work, and now we're in a worse situation." And the boss Holt is like, "Well, why did you try that?" It's like, "Well, I really wanted to win. Like, I wanted to be the one that figured it out. I wanted to be the smart one. I wanted to be the hero." And then there's this pregnant pause, and then he's like, "Oh my god, I got it!" Like, and then he runs back into the room and he elicits a confession from the suspect. So how does he do this?
Yeah, because he realizes that what he saw in himself, that he wanted to be the smartest person in the room, was in fact the motivation of all three of him, Holt, and the dentist. They were all just trying to outsmart each other. And what he probably also realized is that the dentist actually was the traditionally smartest of all of them, but that it isn't about being the smartest in the situation. It's about learning how to play the game and iterating based on the information that you get. So instead of Jake's motivation in the next iteration be going in so that Jake can win, so that Jake can have all the glory and laud it over Holt and the dentist who he's going to put away, he's like, what if I just give that glory to the dentist and allow him to have what he wants? And oh, by the way, like me, he might even think that he wants that more than he wants to win the game. And so he goes in and he goes to the dentist into explaining how smart he is. And the dentist, goes off on a tirade. He reveals the convicting information that leads to the end of the case.
Yeah, and so Jake figures out that seeming smart, feeling like you're the smartest person, winning by being smart is more important to this character than keeping his secret. And so he sets him up so they're like, "Oh, you got super lucky. It's really lucky for you that all those things to came together to allowed you to get away with this crime." And as much as this guy wants to get away with the crime, he wants more not to seem like he was just a dumb guy that blundered into getting lucky. He's like, "No, this is the perfect crime, and this is the way that I did it because it was planned out every step of the way." Like, he has to prove that he's smart. He's more motivated to prove that he's smart than he is to prove that he's innocent or to get away with it. And so, yeah, it's all the realization is motivation. Like, if you're iterating in the game, the iteration in the game is to gain information, like to have more facts would be useful. But more facts aren't what unlock this. What unlocks it is insight into the motivation of the person across the table. And that's true in sales. And that's true when you're, trying to get something out of your a boss or somebody that holds a resource in your company, right? If you ask them for something the first time based on what you want and what you need and the facts, you're probably going to get a no, right? But if you're lucky, if you ask a couple times and you get a couple different flavors of no, the flavors of no will tell you what that person actually wants. They will say no because you're not solving this other problem that I actually care about. No, because you didn't consider this factor that will be bad that I actually care about. Right. And so then you have to bake that into your approach. You have to bake that into your plan. Is like, "Oh, okay. So now I'm going to make a pitch, not about what I want, but I'm going to make a pitch about what you want."
Yes, you have to understand what motivates somebody. So, practical application of this, we probably have a million different examples, but even sometimes it's easy to forget on the first pass, like it's about motivation, it's not about information, because you want to present the best information to somebody. You want to present the benefits, you want to present the cost, you want to present the future vision of everything. And this is all information. But the only way that it lands is it has to align with something that they want to see in the world. So, there's Brian, you always talk about the fact that in any business, the failure modes of people who don't understand how to operate in a business environment is that they take the first no at face value and say, I guess we can't do this.
Right. Right. It's a yeah, the challenge is to understand how to get things aligned, right? There's all these competing motivations inside an organization. There's people that represent different viewpoints because that's their job. Like, viewpoints are conflicting. The people in charge of purchasing want to do a good job of buying things. People in charge of finance want to make sure all the numbers add up. People in charge of sales want to, everybody has different goals, right? And so when you're asking somebody else to do something to collaborate with you, if you ask them and you get a no, it's not necessarily like this is the company rule that it's always a no. It's like, yeah, you didn't figure out how to either how to do it or how to explain it in a way that everybody understands that it's a win-win.
And it takes multiple times to figure that out because your motivation and their motivation are often not the same, even if you're both aligned to the same mission. So I'll just give an example that we had one time. So we're trying to implement a new technology solution as we do. And this is a pretty big technology solution where in the past had like very moderate success of transforming this process. So we are, we go at it multiple times, multiple different demos of what this solution could be for the target user base. like, look at how great this is going to be. It's going to do all this stuff. It's going to save you time. It's going to increase the accuracy of your work. This is transformational. And each time they're like, yeah, I guess I could see the value, but you're not getting commitment. You're getting at best understanding, but not commitment. And it was only after we attempted this, oh my goodness, I mean, this must have been 3 to 5 times before we realized, okay, no, the lead person here, their motivation, this guy's motivation is he wants to achieve this specific business outcome. He actually just wanted to save enough time in the process that he was able to capture these additional data inputs that he's not getting right now to run his
Mhm.
simulations. The other stuff is all gravy to him, basically. But if you could just get him enough time so he could gather these additional data inputs to make, the better decision of what he thinks he can make, that would get his buy-in. And as soon as you take the exact same proposal and just turn it a little bit and say, look how this is going to give you enough time, and we'll go ahead and automatically process those data inputs that you want into the model. He's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Suddenly you
Yeah.
go from understanding to commitment.
Right. And most of the people you interact with are not trying to trick you. They're not trying to lock information away from you. They're telling you very honestly their worldview. You're like, oh, I don't care about this because it doesn't address this other thing. Or I don't care about this because I'm busy doing this other thing. Right. They will tell you very explicitly. And it's kind of on you to figure out how to explain, like, oh, yeah, just like Jake and Holt and the dentist in this episode, everybody wants to be the hero. Right. Your job is to figure out how to walk in and say, hey, I've got an idea about how you can be the hero. Right?
Yeah.
Like how my idea is going to make you successful in the way that you already value. Like that's the pitch that works.
Yeah, I mean, another example from not too long ago, we're trying to convince a leader from a different part of the company to take on this entirely new strategy, which is going to result in process changes for them. And we're just trying to convince them to accept a trial. We just wanted to run a trial to see how it would go in their area so that we could capture data, which would tell us what resources that we needed to put into changes to make this happen in the future full time, right? So we have like a bigger change that we want to implement. We have to convince somebody in the company of this change. So we went at it 2 times, 2 different presentations. After the first presentation, we got this feedback. We're like, oh my goodness, okay. So we thought that we needed to refine some of the details of the presentation and tune up the information. So, I'm leading a guy on the team and he's doing this and he tunes up the information and he presents it back and he answers all the questions that the evaluator had. But once again, now we get new out of left field questions. Why aren't you solving this other problem? Isn't this more important over here? How is this going to really impact the KPIs? And after that, we had to take a step back and do a regroup and say, okay, really, what is his motivation here? And what we found out was that we weren't doing a good job of casting the bigger picture. He was still seeing this as the system is status quo. You guys are just proposing a change. We were seeing this whole new reality that we
Mm,
thought he already understood. Hey, there's this new world that we need to go into. And as a result of this new world, we need to change. But he was not seeing the vision of the new world yet. And if anything, that's on us. We assumed, it's always the dumb thing to do, that he saw that reality. And as soon as we come back, and instead of trying to answer the detailed questions and have better information, we were like, yeah, so I just want to make sure that you agree that this reality, this new world is where we're going. And then suddenly all the other questions start to disappear because it's like, yeah, you're right. We probably should just run a trial to see if we could go in that direction.
right. Because I want to be a hero in the new world, right? As the evaluator, like, oh yeah, I want to be the person that leads us there, and this is the thing that I could take credit for. Of like, oh yeah, well, see, I authorized this trial, which is clearly showing,
Yep.
yeah, that's fabulous. That's a really good trick, right? So, yeah, so, what we see in this ridiculous episode of this office sitcom, right? What we see in this is like you said,